Shame insists that we define our life by our personal failures. See, don't talk about yourself unless you tell the whole story. That's what shame says. And no fool wants to tell the whole story. You've tried to live past it. Shame says you're not done with it because you don't talk about it. It's an emotional connection with everything that Jesus died to free us from. It not only says shame. It not only says this is what you have done. Shame says this is who you are. And this is who you'll always be. And I'm taking my time because I see some of you now going to school. You're writing it down. You're going to have it. That's what shame says. Shame says this is what you've done. Then shame says this is who you are. Then shame says you can fool them, but this is who you will always be. Because we know everybody has issues. Shame says your issue is just this one thing. And so you have a problem with forgiveness because you can never forgive yourself because you can never forget what you've done. And shame won't let you forget it because every time something good comes up, shame says, now remember, before you start getting too happy. And shame will go into your past, have someone to pull you up, to remind you. Do whatever they need you to do. Don't invite them to your church though. Because they know who you are. And they'll invite you to anything they want you to come to, and we will run like hell to get to them. Because running to them is running back to hell to keep them away from our heaven. Shame says, do what they want you to do before they come and let people know who you really are. That's shame talking. If you don't run back to the club, you'll go to the place a block away from it. They ain't coming to church with you. There are a few things more destructive than shame. And I got to talk about shame before we start talking about forgiveness. Shame robs you of your sense of dignity and worth. Every time you feel like you're worth something, the shame of what you've done pops its ugly head back up. It paralyzes you in the past. You're stuck back there. That was 5 years ago. That was 10 years ago. That was 20 years ago. That was 2 hours ago. Whatever it was, you're paralyzed. You are a mental, emotional quadriplegic. You are paralyzed from neck down. All you can do is look around and see and become critical. You have no sense of movement. You have no sense of going around because shame paralyzes you in your past. And you are still where you were when you did what you did. Oh, now in church and in other places, we can wave our hands. We can throw our fives at the preacher. We can walk around and we can look to see, did y'all get that? Did y'all get that? But shame says don't go too far because you're still stuck where you were. It empowers you. It disempowers you from living a new and different future, because whatever it is that you did that you were ashamed of, it disempowers you. It took away the power that you needed to go into a future. It took away your power, and it constantly takes away your power. And you become very jealous or angry with anybody else who looks like they're pressing forward, because it seems as if anybody could go forward, it ought to be you. But shame says, don't you dare put another foot forward. And every time you try to move forward, I will bring up what you did, and that means that's who you are. So it disempowers you. It also intoxicates you with confusion. You're always drunk. You're always, when shame is in your, shame shows up, he stays there, and you are just intoxicated. You're always confused. You just don't know. I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to, and you never know what to do. Although you're doing all you can, you seem to never know what you do or what you need to do, because shame constantly intoxicates you with confusion, and then it clouds your mind so that you make horrible decisions. Why did I snap? Why did I go off? Why did I buy this and I knew I didn't have the money for it? I mean, really, why did I go there when I knew they would be there? And it constantly clouds your mind, and it keeps you in a never-ending cycle of negative emotions, negative decisions, negative results, because that's the way shame works. And you just always, you can be in a room of happy people and look for one person that you don't like and kill it, because shame makes sure that something happens to mess you up. We got to talk about this before we talk about the code now. You can't talk about forgiveness if you don't understand one of the first people you're going to have to forgive is you. If you have a problem forgiving me tomorrow, you maybe should have waken up early enough to forgive yourself first. Shame is like a self-induced punishment for your wrongs. So when we start talking about forgiveness, you have to remember that one of the first people you have to forgive is you. And so what shame does, it says, I will inject you every day with an injection that will help you to see that I need to punish you for what you did. You had that accident. You had that miscarriage. You had that abortion. You started that fight. You went into that crazy relationship. You hit those people. Whatever it is, every day it will give you a self-induced punishment shot for what you did. And so even if you felt like today is going to be great, as soon as you say it's going to be great, shame says, really? A lot of people feel that they should live in shame in order to pay for what they did wrong. I just feel like if I just, and ironically, you can never suffer enough to pay the cost when you're shamed. Regardless of how bad it's making you feel, you still feel like you owe shame something. When is enough ever enough? And because the price for your negative actions just keep coming up. Am I talking too fast? Am I talking to the family right now? I'm talking to those of you who understand that you need the code. See, and it just seems like, man, we can never pay enough for it, because as soon as you're done with it, something's going to bring it up. The more we feel shame, the more we think we should pay. And the more we feel shame, the less deserving we feel of God's love and mercy. So when we start talking about God's love and God's mercy, when he loves all of them, he couldn't possibly love me because of what I've done. And so shame says, you don't deserve God's love. You don't deserve God's mercy. God says, yes, you do. But shame is speaking louder than God. And you want to experience God's love, and you want to be a loving person to God's people, and you want to extend God's mercy. But every time you do, shame says, how dare you act like you didn't do what you did? People live in shame. One of the ways you can tell you live in shame is that you keep rehearsing your failure over and over again. You did it once, but every once in a while you live it over again. You keep pictures of it. You bring it up. You keep a diary of it. You take snapshots of it. You call the people to see if they're around because you just keep rehearsing it. You keep rehearsing it. Well, they're my friend. This is my past. This is my life. And you keep rehearsing it. Because what you're trying to do is not only get rid of your shame, you're trying to see if they are ashamed of you as you are of them or of who you are of yourself. And so you just keep rehearsing it. And it seems as if everybody's moving on except you and shame. And when you move on, of course, everywhere you go, you have to occupy a seat for your shame. And this is exactly what Paul identified as a weakness